Good morning to those joining us on the West Coast, and afternoon to everyone else in the other time zones. On behalf of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the Administration for Community Living and Indian Health Service, I would like to welcome everyone to the Long-Term Services and Supports webinar series. My name is Anna Whiting-Sorrell, and I work for Kaufman and Associates, and I will be your moderator today. Today's webinar is entitled My Advanced Care and Guide for Native American and Other Resources. I have had an opportunity to see this guide, and it is a beautiful guide that can really help those of us in Indian country as we make these important decisions. Please note that the webinar series is supported by a contract awarded by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this webinar are those of the presenters and do not necessarily represent the official position or policies of the Department of Health and Human Services or the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Today's webinar objectives are, we're going to discuss the benefit of the Advanced Care Guide and how to use that plan to address the needs of American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiians. Today's presenters, what I'd like to introduce are Ben Benson and Peggy Jo Archer, and they are from the International Association of Indigenous Aging, or as it is commonly referred to is IA Squared. Bill is the president of IA Squared. He has worked in aging and health for over 36 years and is the co-author of numerous papers on long-term care issues in Indian country. As the former staff director for the Senate Labor Subcommittee on Aging, Bill oversaw the successful reauthorization of the Older Americans Act in 1992. Under his leadership, and that year's authorization included Title VII, Subtitle B, Native American Organization and Elder Justice provisions, the first federal law created to address issues of elder abuse and elder justice in Indian country. From 1993 to 1998, Bill was the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Aging at the Administration on Aging at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. He was the Acting Assistant Secretary for Aging in 1997. Bill spent 8 years in various capacities in the U.S. Congress, including Staff Director for the Subcommittee on Aging of the Senate Labor and Health Resources Committee, Staff Director of the Subcommittee on Housing and Consumer Interests of the House Select Committee on Aging, and with the Senate Special Committee on Aging. With that resume, we're so honored to have Bill join our webinar today. With him is Peggy Jo Archer. Currently, she serves as the Native American Elder Justice Initiative Project Coordinator at IA Squared. With roots in New York, Arizona, and Mexico, she began her work in violence prevention in 2007, while working on a prevention through the Olveris Bullying Prevention Program. Peggy Jo has unique experience managing program operations for federally funded projects such as the National Indigenous Elder Justice Initiative at the University of North Dakota and the Native American Elder Justice Initiative National Resource Center on a state, regional, and national level. She serves as a resource for American Indians, Alaska Natives, and Native Hawaiian on their aging issues with the emphasis on elder abuse. I'm going to go ahead and send it over to Peggy Jo, and look forward to all that you're going to share on in this webinar today. So thank you, Bill and Peggy, for joining us.
Thank you for the introduction. We are excited to be here. Again, we want to welcome everyone to the webinar, specifically coming from the Native American Elder Justice Initiative, and how you would say that is NAGI. We serve as a national resource center, and today we are going to be presenting on the My Advanced Care Plan and Guide for Native Americans. We'd like to take a few minutes to acknowledge the land that we are all on, since we're in that virtual space. I would like if everybody could take a few moments to read the land acknowledgement that is on the screen, and a few moments of silence to acknowledge that. Thank you. Next slide. Again, we already went through introductions. So this is who our staff is. I know we didn't get to introduce Emma, but Emma Lynch is our project assistant. So you'll see her name in a lot of things for NAGI. And then you'll see that on the other side of the founders, we have Dave Baldridge, who is our executive director for IED Squared. Okay, here you go, Bill.
Okay, thank you, Peggy Jo. I realize I might have some bandwidth difficulties. I just got kicked off, so please know that if I disappear or freeze, I'll be getting right back on, and Peggy Jo will pick up for me too, as necessary under those circumstances. My thanks to Kaufman and Associates. I've known Joanne for many, many years, and I just always thrilled to have this opportunity to work with the Kaufman team. So to Anna and to Christina and to Tom, thank you for sharing your time with us today for this presentation. Let me tell you just a little bit more about IA Squared. I co-founded IA Squared in 2021 with my dear friend and colleague, Dave Baldridge, who for about a dozen years was the executive director of the National Indian Council on Aging in Albuquerque, NICOA. And when Dave stepped down from NICOA, Dave and I formed IA Squared. So we've been in business now for a couple of decades. Dave is an enrolled member of the Cherokee Nation, but a lifelong New Mexican. This is just a brief statement about our mission and our vision, but our job really is to try to help people and programs figure out how to competently and effectively access and serve Native American elders. And we try to advance both knowledge and practice and promote engagement at all levels, national, state, and local. And in everything we do, we strive as best we can to acknowledge the history, rights, cultures, and value of Indigenous people throughout their lifespans. This is a screenshot from our website, and our website is relatively new. We were able to, or at least the quality of it is new, which was greatly enhanced by the award that we received from several years ago from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to serve as the Native American Brain Health Resource Center. That is under what's known as the Healthy Brain Initiative, which is a congressionally funded initiative through the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And on this website, as you see it here, you can go to click on to the various projects and programs that we are operating currently, including our brain health work. And our newest addition to this is NAGI, the Native American Elder Justice Initiative. And I just want to say at this point that we were delighted when ACL elected to have us run the NAGI after its wonderful tenure at the University of North Dakota, where Peggy Jo had been working with NAGI at the University of North Dakota. And we are thrilled that she decided to come over and continue the work that she'd been doing for several years at the University of North Dakota to join us. So we're thrilled by that. I'm now going to turn it over to Peggy Jo to tell you more about NAGI, which we are very excited to have, and especially excited again to reiterate to have Peggy Jo taking over the helm for this initiative for us.
Thank you, Bill. So you'll hear the two different terms. You will hear NIJI and NAGI. Our new term that we've decided is going to be NAGI, but on some of the slides and in the website, you'll see NIJI. So just so you know with the different terms when we're using them. So as Bill was talking about, there is a long history with NIJI. It is a cooperative agreement from ACL, which was established NIJI at the University of North Dakota, which is the National Indigenous Elder Justice Initiative. As you heard Bill talked about it, IE Squared was awarded this in 2022, and the mission there is to promote locally tailored cultural relevant activities to address elder justice specifically. Here are some of the goals that we plan to do in the future, and as we're doing now, is that we are providing technical and training assistance, identifying evidence-informed and evidence-based practices, activities, and resources, and really identifying and disseminating tribal codes and helping people really talk about tribal codes and identifying do they have one and how to develop one. So today we're really going to talk about the My Advanced Care Plan and Guide for Native Americans. And this guide was developed to assist Indigenous people with planning for health issues, end-of-life decision-making, and sharing their wishes with their loved ones, their care team plan, anyone that is appropriate to help with decision-making for their life. This is where we'll put later in, we'll show you where you can find it, but this is the cover of it. And so when we worked on developing this document, it took several months to develop it. It was developed under the former director of NIJI, which is Dr. Jackie Gray. She spent a lot of time working in New Zealand with the Maori, and this is who it was adapted from, and she got that permission. And so how the process went when we developed this, we sat down and we looked at how the Maori had their advanced care plan and how it was really culturally tailored to the Maori people. And we knew that that was something that we needed to have from the NIJI standpoint of supporting our Indigenous elders. And so we had a group of people that met once or twice a week and really put those cultural considerations into the already made document from the Maori group, or Maori people. So here we just want to acknowledge that that we have permission and that we adopted this from the Maori. And it was developed at the University of North Dakota through NIJI. However, we are still able to use it. It's still accessible on the website.
I'm going to pick up from here. Thank you very much, Peggy Jo. I just as an aside, I have a very long personal history working with advanced care planning and advance directives. I was the co-author of the first durable power of attorney healthcare decision-making law in the country in California before I moved back to Washington, D.C. And my first assignment when I got to the U.S. Senate, my first assignment was to get a snapshot of what federal agencies were doing with advanced care planning. What would they allow in federal institutions of one kind or another, or federally funded facilities, including nursing facilities and all kinds of others. And we surveyed all different agencies from the Indian Health Service to the Department of Corrections to the Veterans Administration, and certainly CMS at that time, called the Healthcare Financing Administration, to find out, what was the state of advanced care planning at that time with federal agencies. That was long ago. We've come a long way. And so when we took on the responsibilities for NAGI, the Native American Elder Justice Initiative Resource Center, I was thrilled to see what work Peggy Jo and Dr. Gray and others had done to address advanced care planning in Indian country. And so we are very proud to have this be our first unveiling, if you will, of this document, of this wonderful resource. And it is currently on the NIJI website, and we'll show that again later in the presentation. And it will transition to be available through our website as we transition the website. So this is just a remarkable document, and I just applaud Dr. Gray, Peggy Jo, and all the people who contributed to it. It really is a nice piece of work and serves a really important need. And that need is at heart when one is facing advanced illness, serious illness, life-threatening injuries, accidents, or just the dying process itself. It is important for most people to be able to guide as best they can the care that they will receive, the decisions that will be made on their behalf or about them. And advanced care planning is really just that. It's to, in advance of serious illness, injury, or death, to plan, to be able to plan and express what kind of care one wants, what kind of treatment, what kinds of attention that they want paid to them in that journey towards death. And then, of course, once a person is passed on, what are the wishes that they would like to have respected or honored once they've passed? And so this document is intended to really capture at the individual level for each of us, what are our expression of wishes, and to commit those wishes to paper, if you will, or to an electronic document that is easily found, retrievable, so that people know exactly what each of us would express about our own care and treatment when faced with serious illness or our journey towards passing on. So the document opens with a table of contents, and we're not going to be able to go through line by line through this document, but I do want to highlight certain parts of it so that you know what's in the document. And of course, it'll be available and we'll have the link to get it. But there's really 7 sections to it. And the very first section is, why advanced care planning? Why does it matter? And we try to explain that as best we can to tell you what an advanced care plan is all about. Section 2 addresses personal statements about what matters to me, and I'll go into some detail about each of these. To the individual, what matters to the individual, what matters most. Section 3, an expression of why I'm making an advanced care plan. Section 4 is to analyze how one makes decisions for themselves and to convey how we make decisions so others who may be in a position where someday they have to make a decision on our behalf, they can be guided by how we express our wishes and make our decisions. Section 5 gets into the end stage as we begin that journey towards the end, towards death. Section 6 specifically, I see a question popped up. The answer, I'll just answer it. Yes, it is absolutely available for use right now. Section 6 is where one lays out what their treatment and care choices are as best they know them. And then Section 7, after my passing, is what one leaves behind by way of wishes and expectations, and we'll get into that a little bit. So let me move to the next slide, if I could.
Bill, can I share something really quick?
Please do, Peggy Jo.
I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about how we developed the document. So I know I talked about the group and how we met, but once we developed this document, we sent it out to communities in Alaska, communities in Hawaii, and several different communities among the United States. And so we were able to get feedback. And this document took us a lot of time to revise it because of the different cultures, the different traditions, the different beliefs and values that go into the various communities that we serve. So you'll see specifically on this page where it says tribe, band, clan, there's different terminology that needs to be used and accounted for, especially culturally accounted for when we are working with Indigenous populations. So that's what really was the important part for us. And that took a really intentional and a long process. And we were really excited how it came out to be.
Thank you, Peggy Jo. I also want to express my admiration for the fact that Peggy Joe and Dr. Gray sought out the Maori people to guide them because they had developed their own approach to advanced care planning. In our work with brain health, running our American Indian Alaska Native Brain Health Center, we have turned to other countries, particularly Canada, Australia, New Zealand, for learnings about how they approach dementia and brain health. And you'll see that reflected in some of our IA squared documents that relate to Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. So section 1 really is the basics. This is my advanced care plan. Tells you a little bit about why, how to go about doing it, and provides really basic information like your name, the date of birth, what tribe and what band or clan you're associated with, address. It's a very basic, but what it tries to convey in this first part is that this is something that you don't have to follow everything in the plan. You don't have to complete everything in the document, but the more you complete, the more you lay out your thoughts and wishes, the more others will know what's in your heart and in your mind when you are unable to express what's in your heart and mind as one becomes progressively more incapacitated over time, or suddenly becomes incapacitated after an accident or stroke, for example. It is also important to note that this is a flexible document, meaning that you can change it at any time. It's your document. So as your wishes change, as your thoughts change, including when you name individuals that you would like to be decision makers on your behalf, once you become incapacitated, if you should ever become incapacitated to the extent where you can't make your own decisions, you want to name somebody to do that for you. You know, a loved one is typically who we choose, but not always. Somebody that knows you well, hopefully, but that can change over time. You know, it's entirely possible that somebody says, well, I want my oldest child to be my healthcare decision maker. But, you know, circumstances may change that over time. So it's not locked in concrete if you wish to change it. And that's very important. It's also important, if you can, to engage your healthcare providers, particularly with respect to treatment choices. Section 2 is where we discuss what matters most to us. And you'll see quite a detailed list of examples on the left-hand side. And on the right, you'll see it says, this is what I want my family, loved ones, and healthcare team to know about who I am and what matters to me. It's a very personal document. It's an expression of what matters most to us. And here's the opportunity to address some of the questions on the left-hand side. Yeah, there are many, many others that might go into the space that you fill out on the right-hand side. And of course, for some of us, we might want to addend it with additional pages. You know, if you're not locked into the little boxes here, you might want to go on and on about what matters to you. The more you say about what matters to you, the more guidance you are offering others to help make decisions on your behalf if it should ever come to that. And so I'll leave it to you to glance through those questions on the left-hand side, but how do you like to spend your time? You know, quite honestly, if there's a particular kind of music that I love spending my time and it matters to me, note that, because if one is incapacitated, they may still enjoy having music in the background, and hopefully it would be the music that you want. And this is the place to lay that out. Now, true, you know, those around you who love you may know that already. But, you know, the more you express it, the more it's sort of there, memorialized for all time, if you will. You'll notice under here are some other things that might be important or meaningful to you. Being able to talk and be close to people. You want people around you, or don't, as the case may be. Being close to a pet. You know, that may be of such importance that you want to have your pets nearby, no matter what your condition may be at a particular time. And of course, it may be really important to lay out, and for many people, this will absolutely be the case, what your cultural, religious, and spiritual values, rituals, and beliefs are, so that those are honored to the greatest extent possible. And then finally, an expression of what you want your family members to do to honor those things that matter most to you that you've addressed in this document based on the questions on section 2. Let's move to the next slide, please. This one is a different tone. It's what worries me, and this is to say this is what I care about and I worry about as I think about the future, as I think about what might happen to me, what healthcare needs that I might have in the future, what capacity I may have or I may lose. So these are the things that I worry about. You know, a very common one, of course, is how my health might affect my loved ones. That might create all kinds of worries. And so you want to be able to express the things that cause you concern. Other examples might be, you know, I'm very concerned and I worry about what pain I might be in. And I would like to express how I'd like to manage that pain if I should be in it. What worries me is the inability to be able to communicate. Very basic things. Others, it might be, I'm very worried about dying alone. And so expression of that might be that you might express a lot of consideration about your worries about dying alone. Anyways, I won't go through all of this. A very typical one in Indian country may be worried about clashes between traditional and modern cultural ways, and certainly clashes between Western healing methods and traditional healing methods. This is a place to be able to express not only one's worries about those, but what one hopes will be what is most respected about your particular wishes. And of course, people worry about finances. They worry about the cost of their care. They may be worried about the burdens of financial to family members, both as one is in a treatment situation or an end-of-life situation, but also worries about finances once one is gone. This is the section where we try to have you say why you are making an advanced care plan. This is why I'm doing this. And it gets down to the very basics. And some of the things to think about in why you make an advanced care plan is, for example, thinking about the kinds of illnesses that your family has had, and you're worried about that happening to you as well. You know, if your family has a history of cancer, or a history of strokes, or a history of Alzheimer's or other dementia, those are things that might be very much in the forefront of your mind that could possibly be an illness that might happen to you. You want to think about what your health, your current health, and what your future health might mean to your ability to do the day-to-day things that you care about in your day-to-day activities. It's also a time to think about health conditions that you currently have and what kind of treatment are you currently getting for whatever your healthcare treatment might be at time. We suggest that there are things to discuss that could change as your illnesses progress, or if you were to have a sudden cataclysmic kind of event in your life. And that is, how do you live your life? How independent you are today, and the things that you need to plan for. And of course, what might your illness mean for the people who may need to care for you? And so using this document, it's designed to not only be able to fill out in as much detail as you wish your response to these questions or similar questions, but also to check off what matters for you. So when you complete this, you will notice I am well as an option. I am well. I have no particular healthcare concerns or conditions today as I complete this document. So I am well. But if I am receiving care and treatment, and for what am I receiving that care and treatment, you can also check off that box and then hopefully provide information about what you are receiving care for at present. You know, you have had a cardiovascular event, and so you are receiving care or treatment for that currently. You have a pacemaker. This is where you want to make sure, you know, that you record that. And then finally on this page, I understand that the following may happen to me with respect to my health in the future. particularly if one looks at family history and is worried about similar things that have happened to others in your family. The why I'm making an advanced care plan continues on the next page. And that is the second part of why I'm making an advanced care plan, continuing the discussion from the preceding page, allows one to be pretty introspective about the future and what might happen to them. With questions like, facing my future makes me think about X, Y, or Z. Facing my future makes me feel. And that can run the gamut from afraid to glad that I have a loving family that's going to be there to care for me, or whatever you feel as you look forward to whatever the future might hold for you. And I particularly like, if my time were limited, my priorities would be. At any stage of our life, I think that's a really good question to help guide us as to how we spend our time while we are well, but certainly how our time is spent if we know that we've begun that journey towards the end of our lives. Section 4 gets into a lot more detail, and it's intended to guide you through that kind of detail. And this is, the section is on how I make decisions. That is, how each of you who might fill out this document, what is your decision-making process? And I think I particularly like the right-hand side, which allows you on a scale to express sort of your decision-making style. And let's take a look at a couple of them. As the right-hand side opens, there are no right or wrong answers for these questions, because each of them depends on our individual needs and desires. And we ask on this document that you mark on that scale where the dots are, mark where you stand on that scale. So like, let's take a look at the first one. I like to know only the basics. And there are a lot of us that we just prefer, we don't want all the details. We don't need that. We let others handle that, and I'm guilty of that. If that's the right phrase, I'm content to have my wife know the details about my condition. As long as she knows, I feel like I'm in good hands. And so I only want the basics. That I don't advise that, but that is how I operate. And so, and this allows you to be able, on a scale, a 5-point scale, basically say, I only want to know the basics, or I'm somewhere in the middle. I want basic information, but not all the details. I let my wife handle that. And for many of us, of course, we want to know all the details, as much as we can possibly learn. And so you can click on the fifth box on the dot on the far right. The others in this category, as doctors treat me, I would like to, and the scale here runs from having my doctors or my healthcare providers do what they think best to I want to have a say in every decision that is made about my care. And that is ultimately means I either want to have say in everything because I'm capable of being able to do that. But if I'm not able to, I want my decision maker that I've selected to be able to have a say in every decision made on my behalf. Again, that scale. The third one is, if I have an illness that will shorten my life, I prefer, as you'll see here on the scale, I want to know my doctor's best estimate for how long I have to live. I want my doctor to tell me, you've got 6 months. I want my doctor to tell me that. That's the place that's where you would mark that. But if you're, I'd like to not know. I had a conversation with family members just yesterday about Alzheimer's, and the discussion was, at what point do I want to know that I have been that I have early stage Alzheimer's? And some family members were like, I don't think I want to know. I just wanted the disease to take its course. And others were, I want to know the moment that the disease was diagnosed. I want to know that because I want to plan around that. And along those lines, the next scale is, how involved do you want your loved ones to be? And I think that's obviously, like all the other questions, incredibly important. And you'll see here the three options on this scale are, I want family members to do exactly as I have said, even if it makes them uncomfortable. I want them to follow my wishes, to the T. But farther out on that scale, I want my family members to do what brings them peace, even if it goes against what I have said, what have I expressed my wishes. If when I no longer can make decisions, I want my family to do what makes them feel most comfortable. These are deeply personal thoughts, deeply personal aspirations and wishes. And here's the opportunity to think them through and then sort of make a commitment, at least for now, as to where you stand on that particular matter. And similarly, when it comes to sharing information, we run the gamut from I want everything shared to I want very little shared, and your opportunity to express that. This, I think, is an especially thought-provoking section. And I think you will agree with that. Let's move on to the second part of this, how I make decisions, which is the second page of this. And this is where we get into the more formalized process of selecting someone to make decisions on our behalf when we appoint what the document here refers to as an enduring power of attorney, or EPOA. And this is somebody that you have named formally in one form or another to be your enduring power of attorney, somebody who you have said, they have my power to be able to make decisions on my behalf. Now, they're not going to make decisions on your behalf while you're able to continue to make them unless you want them to, but that's not normally the case. This is where you say, I want this person, I'm going to name them, and I want them. And it could be more than one person that you have do it in tandem. And it's important, and I think this document does a good job of saying that if you are going to name somebody as your enduring power of attorney for personal care, they need to be included in the discussions about what you want. They need to know as thoroughly as possible what your wishes are, so that when they make decisions on your behalf, when that time comes, they are following what you would have wanted as closely as possible, because you've shared as much as you can with them. Once you've completed the advanced care plan, this particular document or whatever version you might have or want to have, that you make sure they have a copy of it. And if you do not have an enduring power of attorney, it's a good idea nonetheless to name someone who will help the healthcare team make the best decisions for you. And again, that requires, expressing that. I want my wife, I want my eldest son, I want my daughter, I want my closest friend in life to be the person who helps make these decisions with the healthcare team. And again, whoever that person is, it is really important that we take the time to talk with them as much as possible. I know our time is getting short here, so let's move on to section 5. Here we move into, as one begins their journey towards their end, the steps leading up to their declining illness and when they pass. Here is where we want you to be able to talk about treatment and care, and what matters most to you as you actually get towards the end of your life and going into your dying process. So example, this is where you begin to express your wishes about what kind of care do you want? What kind you might need, depending on what condition you're facing, you might need pain relieving medicines and treatments. You might need medication to ease your breathing difficulties. You might need medication to manage nausea, for example. This is where you want to talk with your healthcare provider or providers, whoever's providing your healthcare, to understand what your needs might be depending on what conditions you face. And it's also, this is an opportunity to think about, as you're going into your final stages of your life, what quality of life may mean to you at that particular time. And you'll see there's sections devoted to that. And along those lines, as you start your journey, as we begin that path towards the very end, what is going to be most important to you? And I think those questions are very good. When are you close to, when you are close to passing, what is it you do not want, or what you want. When you think about dying, what situations worry you the most? Who do you want with you when you die? You want to be surrounded by everybody in the family? Do you want to be holding hands with your wife only or your husband only? Those are very personal decisions, but they're worth thinking about them in advance. And this document allows you to think about them and express them. And on the right-hand side, in particular, note, I understand that when I'm dying, my comfort and dignity will always be looked after. That's paramount. We need to know that that's going to be the case. And this allows you to go on to say, I would like you to know, whoever's reading my who's responsible for my advanced care plan, let the people who are important to me be with me at the end. Take out things that don't add to my comfort. If I have tubes in me that are not adding to my comfort at the very end, I want them gone. This is your place to say that. Stop medications and treatments that don't add to my comfort. And then finally, of course, and of great importance, if you want to make sure that they attend to your religious, cultural, and spiritual needs that you've outlined earlier in the document. Moving on now to the next section, this is section, I'm sorry, this is continued on section 5. This is really important. This is where we address things like, where do I want to be when I am at the final stages of my life? Do I want to be at home? And what is home for me? What do I, where do I want that to be? Do I want it to be where I currently live right now? Do I want it to be with my daughter and my daughter's home? Or for some people in a hospital or some other setting. I want to go to hospice care. You can express it here. Or some people, you know, I don't mind where I'm cared for as long as I'm cared for. This is the place to lay out those kinds of things that you have thought about in advance. The whole purpose of advanced care planning, to do all this as far in advance as possible. And let me just restate that it is never too early to begin thinking these things through, because advanced care planning is not just about the end stage of chronic illness or a dread disease of one kind or another. It also is important if one were to have a serious life-threatening accident, something that comes on suddenly. And that, of course, as we know, can happen at any time in life. And certainly that's true also of diseases. Lord, we know that all too well, having just gone through the COVID-19 pandemic that we've been through. Section 6 is a section that really is, next page, please, which is really, it's really important here to get guidance and engagement of your healthcare providers as much as possible, to understand the language, to understand the implications of what these different kinds of treatments mean. But you'll see on the right-hand side, there are 5 options. These are really, these are intense, and this is important to understand this, to understand what they mean. And that's why I think there's so much emphasis here on trying to engage your healthcare providers in thinking about these particular matters. You know, for example, I would like my treatment to be aimed at keeping me alive as long as possible. I wish to receive all treatments that the healthcare team think are appropriate to my situation, although there might be exceptions. That might be the box that somebody might check. There are people, and I've been with people for whom the decision is, I want all the healthcare possible to the very end. And that can be your choice. That's your right, that can be your choice. And we know in families, there may be children who say, I want mom to get all the healthcare possible, everything, try everything. And mom may not want that. And mom may have expressed otherwise. And this is the document or something like this, where you try to settle those very emotional difficulties that families often have. And here you also have the option in that first one to say, I want CPR done, resuscitation. I want to be resuscitated. Now, when you go to box 2 and box 3, the options here relate to, I do not want to be resuscitated. I do not want, often known as the DNR order in healthcare settings, do not resuscitate. That is something that we can choose for ourselves, that we will not be resuscitated should we have a heart attack or have a stroke that would require resuscitation. Others do want to be resuscitated under certain circumstances. And you'll see the difference. Number 2, I would like my treatment to focus on my quality of life. If my health deteriorated, I would like to be assessed and given any tests and treatments that may help me to recover and regain my quality of life. But I do not want to be resuscitated. And there's also the opportunity to say what quality of life means to me again. The third choice here, the third box is, I would like to receive only those treatments which look after my comfort and dignity rather than treatments which try to prolong my life. This here is, I don't want to recover. I'm at a stage where I don't want treatments that will help me recover. I just want to be comforted and treated with dignity at the end. And therefore, just like in the previous box, I do not want to be resuscitated, but the circumstances are different. 4 is a really important option. I cannot decide at this point. I don't know. I would like the healthcare team caring for me to make my decisions on my behalf at the time, taking into account what matters to me and in close consultation with the people I've listed earlier in the document. And then, of course, none of these may fit your personal wishes. And option 5 is none of these represent my wishes. What I have said previously in this document is to guide that. Let's move on to the second part of this, my advance directive. And here, I really like the way this was designed. If you have treatment and care preferences for specific circumstances, or you want an advance directive, write the details in as much detail as possible here. An advance directive is a way of choosing ahead of time the specific treatments you would like or would not like in different circumstances if you were no longer able to treat yourself. This requires really thinking through what might happen with a particular disease course or a particular set of conditions. And again, the more that you speak with others that you trust and care about these things, as well as your healthcare providers, to even understand what those different circumstances might be, the more you have those discussions, the better off you are. You'll note at the top, if you can't speak for yourself, it is the responsibility of your healthcare team to apply your advanced care plan and any advanced directives that you've prepared. They're responsible for honoring that as much as humanly possible. Once you are no longer able to speak for yourself. And when they apply that advanced directive, they have to be comfortable that when you did it, you understood what you were asking for. You were free from influence and duress from someone else, family members sometimes, and that you mean for this to apply to the current situation that you're in, whatever that might be. I like the example here. In the example, in the following circumstances, in that box, you have a severe stroke, so severe you're unable to recognize anybody. I would like my care to focus on the option here could be allowing a natural death, let it take its natural course. Or you may want whatever treatments are available at the time to try to recover from a stroke. In this particular example, I would accept the following treatments. I would accept comfort, making sure that I'm comfortable as opposed to treatment to help me recover from the stroke. That's just one option you can choose. And you, if you had a severe enough stroke, in this example, someone might want to say, might choose to say, I would wish to refuse or stop the following treatments. And the example is what we call a feeding tube, for example, generically, artificial feeding. A person may say, if I'm had a severe stroke and I'm at that stage, I don't want to receive nutritional support artificially. I want to have death follow a natural course. These are hard decisions, and they require as much discussion as possible to understand what the options and possibilities are. Let's move on to the next part of section 6, which is, trying to, if I can use the word, to memorialize this document. That is to get signatures on this document so that those that are following your advanced care plan know that you have filled this out yourself, you are comfortable with it, it expresses your wishes, and you've signed this document and dated it so that they know it was you who actually did it. And same, if you have used a healthcare provider to help you with it, that they too would affix their signature to this and date it. And so you'll see the spaces on the right-hand side to do that. This makes it much more formalized, reduces the likelihood of any disputes that might occur over what you've expressed. It's very easy matter to say, well, it doesn't have a signature on it. They obviously hadn't signed it and intended for this to be their final statement. Let's move on to section 7. And I know that our time is getting short here. Oh, very short. Section 7 addresses what happens after one passes. What are your wishes? So again, that you are in control as much as possible with decisions that are made about you once you're gone. And this includes things like organ donation. And you'll see a series of questions here about whether or not you would like any of your organs donated, or even if you would like any particular body parts returned to your family, or to be cared for in a way that's expressly stated by you. This is where you would say your statements about your wishes for your body once you're passed. Do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? Where would you like your remains to be placed? Where's your final resting place? And then other people are going to say, I leave that to my family members. You can say that too. This is all laid out here, as well as even details like, I want an obituary, and I want my obituary to say the following. I want my funeral or my wake or any other ceremony. I want it to look like this or that, as much as you can lay out. And then finally, after my passing, is a series of your final questions. Everything from, your financial documents, where they are, so that family members or heirs or others know where to go to find your buried treasure. You can put that here, or at least know where your will is. If you have a will, and hopefully you have a will, they will know where your will is and how they can find it. And any final words that you want expressed on your behalf. And then finally, save this document. Really important to save this document, to keep it in a safe place. Make sure if you have an enduring power of attorney or somebody who you've designated to be your decision maker after you're gone, make sure they have a copy of this. And if you change it at any point in time, and you probably will if you do one of these documents, you probably will change it as your thoughts and wishes change over time. Each time you change it and update it, make sure that those who will make decisions on your behalf and your healthcare providers have copies of it and access to copies of it. We can't state that strongly enough, I don't think. Your own document is not a forever document if you don't wish it to be. You can make changes to it whenever you want, We too, as we work with this document based on this wonderful feedback, it also will be a work in progress. We will make adaptations to it based on the kind of wonderful feedback that you've been giving us today.
So when you go to the NEJI.org website, you will see right as soon as you get on there where this blue circle is, it'll say featured NEJI resources, my advanced care and plan guide for Native Americans. You can just click that and you can share the document, you can download it, you can print it. There's various ways that you can utilize this document. So please feel free to share it widely. Something I've seen people, how they share it is they just put the link on their Facebook and they give a blurb about why it's important to their community or why it's important to their work or maybe their own personal reasons. So I've seen that's how people share it and it gets a lot of interactions. Again, we just want to say thank you for attending and all the interactions. It was really good to see everyone's thoughts, and a lot of people were thanking us for developing that, and we really appreciate hearing all of the feedback. Again, here's the NEJI website where the document is found. Also, you can email the admin IAIDsquared.org if you had any questions or any thoughts on today's presentation. Here's a URL code also where it'll take you straight to the IAID Squared website. But other than that, we thank you for your time and having us present today.
Thank you all very, very much.